Hey there. So, been a while since I've done any updates or videos or anything like that. So, figured for anybody out there curious what's been going on, I'll bring you up to speed. Been a pretty busy spring into summer type deal. I do a decent amount of travel for work, so keep busy with that stuff. On the other fronts, the slot builds haven't touched much since the winter. And I'll show you here in a second what's been going on. Kind of got the bug to get back into RC racing. So, I don't know, somewhere around March, I started accumulating piles of parts and miscellaneous stuff. And I kind of got back into RC racing. Except I went the no prep drag racing route, obviously, since that's basically my whole background in life. Outside of my professional career, I mean, like I said in the past, I've grown up on drag strips. You know, when I was just a wee little lad, actually, Mom was pregnant with me while my dad was helping a friend of his with a pro comp dragster. So literally grew up in this. So from there, like most kids in the 70s, I don't want to say most kids, but anyways, like kids into mechanical things and stuff like that. I had tether cars, nitro tether cars and stuff, in the late 70s. And then as the family got more and more just busier and traveling all over the place, drag racing, I don't know, somewhere around the 80s. Somewhere in the 80s, 84, 85-ish, we were at the drag strip one night and someone mentioned something about an RC drag strip. And we were like, what? So, sure enough, there was a guy down off of I Drive in Orlando where I grew up. He had taken a Krondek timing system, converted it to work with RC cars, and next to his hobby shop and off-road track, he had a strip of pavement put down, asphalt, and he built this drag strip. So, like I said, somewhere around 84, 85, I started RC racing. And it kind of grew from there. I bounced in and out of the hobby. More recently, in the early 2000s, one of my stints back into it, took a long, low time away from RC racing because, I got my NHRA competition license when I was 16. I'd started bracket racing. Actually, I was 14. We won't go too far into that. Anyways, so, once I got my competition license, I started drag racing. All the RC stuff basically got boxed up and forgot about for a long time. 2000s, early 2000s, I got back into RC racing. But by this time, a lot of the drag racing had dried up, and I moved further north on the East Coast, and there wasn't anything close by. So I got into dirt oval racing because, I'm right on the back door of Central PA, the PA Posse and all that stuff. Started dirt oval racing. That all sorts of stuff. Within that, for a while, I was even tuning and selling spec motors, 17.5 brushless motors and stuff like that. Even dabbled in my first actually line of batteries that I developed with manufacturer and kind of imported. I only ever imported 2 batches of batteries, 2 test batteries. Decided I wasn't going to go that direction. And then I also started developing my own 17.5 motor with a manufacturer overseas. Again, sunk a lot of money into it for just a handful of prototypes, and just decided, you know what, this is just getting crazy. Guys were selling $80 motors, $89 motors for like $150. And I'm like, this is getting sick. This is getting way out of hand. So I departed the pattern from the dirt oval scene. Sold off a lot of my test equipment, a lot of my motor stuff. I had 2 competition electronics, turbo dynos. Those were sold off. You know, I kept some of my meters that I had. You know, my inductance meter, my LCR meter. You know, benchtop Intex. You know, meters. I think somewhere I might still have. No. I used to have a BK Precision Gauss meter that I sold for measuring measuring rotors and so forth. Anyway, so we fast forward and, you know, doing the RC, the no prep drag racing thing. I've been having a blast with it. I've been working with a group out of Waynesboro, Virginia, Luke's Hobbies. You can find him on Facebook. If I remember, whenever I set this up on YouTube, I'll put a link to his Facebook page and to his website, Hobby Shop. He's got a ton of RC no prep stuff in stock, gathering more stock every day. His goal, his vision that he wants, you know, he wants to be the East Coast source for all things RC no prep related. It's quickly becoming that. We just a few weeks back come off of a race down in Knoxville, Tennessee, with those guys down there. You know, had a blast. Jacob Leader was there. You know, Colin from McLean RC was there. Had a blast. Did really well as a team and as a group of drivers. We, I guess, reverse real quick here. The group of racers that we have, we've got Corey Lively on board, who's very, he's very well established, at least in you know, the Carolinas, Virginia, Maryland area. He's been doing the no prep thing for a couple years now. So actual on-track experience, you know, he's got the most of that of all of us, at least doing the no prep stuff. Then there's, you know, myself, who, gosh, I don't even want to add up all the years, but I mean, if we take my experience back to the mid 80s, I've been doing this a long time. So I come at this a very experienced angle. So a lot of the background theory, you know, operational theory, engineering side of it, because I am an engineer by trade. So that's what I bring to the team there. You know, we've got a bunch of guys that are new to the RC hobby. Just so, and they've picked it up real quick. They're drag racers, so they get it. They understand it. They understand the concepts, and you'd be surprised, a lot of the stuff does translate over from the big cars to the RC cars. So it's really not that big of a leap. That's not a huge stretch. So that's why you're seeing a lot of drag racers pick it up on the side, you know, wintered, you know, although nowadays with the big money bracket racing growing, you know, there's still a lot of time divided amongst active drag racers doing the RC stuff. But it's still, you know, it's happening a lot more. And the great thing about being associated with Luke's Hobbies, even more so now, is that as I get into the winter, and yeah, I'm going to touch on the RC stuff, you know, please comment, like the post, subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe. If there's something that you want to see content-wise versus, you know, more along the RC stuff, let me know. I'll pop up, do a couple of, you know, a couple videos, explain my position in it, where I'm coming from, and why I look at it that way. Like I said, I've handled a lot of different electronics over the years, from my first radios, Futaba Magnum, Magnum Junior, you know, old school FM stuff, all the way up through to the first DSM. The first spread spectrum frequency hopping radios, you know, the spectrum modules. I've always been like a KO Propo radio guy. Once I got, you know, when I got back into the hobby in the 2000s. So, I mean, those, I used the spectrum module because it was great running a dirt oval, you go out practice anytime. You don't have to worry about frequency clips and all that stuff. For my old schoolers out there, so you just go up and go. You could also work on the car in the pits, get things trimmed out and so forth without having a radio interference and so forth. So that worked out pretty well. In my professional life, I have worked with the spread spectrum technology in military applications. More recently in other applications, communications applications. So it's about as far as I'm going to go into that. So yeah, operational theory, motors, all that sort of stuff from having built and developed motors on my own, and tuning them over the years, that sort of thing. So, you know, I've got a lot of information as far as that. So feel free, ask away. And the great tie-in and the great thing about the association with Luke's Hobbies, he has a large selection of slot car stuff in stock. He's got a 1/4 mile slot car track. It's a phenomenal track. I mean, he's down the road from me a bit, you know, about an 1.5 hour drive, but, you know, I make the drive down there to race with them. That's how I met him, was through slot car racing. Reconnected through the RC thing, so it's been really great. So that's, you know, what's been going on lately. We're going to go back to Tennessee. We went down to King of the Smokies as a team and as a group. Now, keep in mind, I've only been back into the RC hobby now for, see, March, I mean 6 months, if that. And oddly enough, I bought a DR10. Really hadn't paid much attention to the scene at all. Bought a DR10, started playing with it, got to a certain point with it and realized, okay, I've gone as far as I'm going to go with it in its current configuration. So I'm going to go into the SE class, Street Eliminator Outlaw class. And the reason why I wanted to go that way was I have some very strong opinions about the 13.5 concept and some of the other iterations of a kind of like step down class from the Outlaws, the SEs. And so we can touch on that later. If you got questions, just shoot them down in the comments and we'll go from there. That may be a video in itself. So I quickly was like, all right, I know where I want to go coming back into the hobby. So I don't want to spend a lot of time in development in this, because this ultimately is not the platform I want to go forward with. So I converted it over to a bracket car, and I bracket raced my DR10 bone stock. You know, I've done the threaded shock bodies and a couple other tweaks here and there, but other than that, I've got the same stock, you know, ESC and motor in it. I did go to my own radio. Word of advice, that's always going to be your first go-to, your first thing. Always buy the best radio you can afford. And then from there, I was like, you know what, we're gonna look around, and I saw all of these conversion kits that you buy the carbon fiber pieces and you provide a donor car. There's a bunch of really good ones out there, but that you got to buy multiple things. Associated just came out with the builder's kit. I think there's some parts missing from it that you really need to have on hand. But again, we can discuss that down the road. So coming from the dirt oval hobby most recently, I was very familiar with GFRP. You know, Go Fast Race Products, Dustin Malicote out of Indiana. Very familiar with his products. I know his build quality. I know his attention to detail. You know, I understand from racing with him at races and a lot of people that I'm really good friends with. You know, a lot of interaction with Dustin. And I know his stuff is squared away. It's on point. I know what I was going to expect if I went his direction with purchasing products. So I did. You know, I went with the FiveSeven Designs Arrow kit. And it was everything I expected it to be. You know, professionally put together, built, everything all in one box. You add your own electronics, go. Body mounts, whole 9 yards are there. You know, wheelie bar, you know, shot kits for the wheelie bar, whole 9 yards. One-stop shop. You don't need to buy a second car. You don't need a donor car. You don't need to gather parts and pieces. And when you really stop and look at my car, you're going to see that it is pretty much, aside of some small tweaks, right how you can purchase it. The car runs in the 2 teens, you know, 2.16, 1.5, nothing spectacular. I'm in the process of learning some new stuff, rethinking the way I had the car set up and so forth. But it's shown promise in testing. So I think the next major event I go to, which is looking like in September this month, there's a race down in Smithfield, North Carolina. So I'm gonna head down to that race. So and there's a few of us within the Luke's circle team that are running the 5.7. Luke runs a 5.7. And as a group of people, some new to the hobby completely, some have been involved in it in the past, some had been in it for a while now. We did really, really well. I mean, the 90 some odd street eliminator cars, and every one of us, minus one driver who got hit by another car, and he had some mechanical issues that weren't initially spotted right then from the first assessment of the car after he got hit. There was all of us, like 5 drivers, got to the round of 16. I mean, got down to quarterfinals, 8th finals, got down to 16 cars. A couple of us survived. You know, Brian, Vinny, and myself, we survived to make it down to 8 cars. I lost the eventual race winner. I honestly had nothing for him that day. If you guys have been following, you know the name Jeff Zuccarell. He's old school pan car racer. He's held his own against the best of the best, the Paul Lemieux, Josh Cyrils, stuff like that. The guy is very bright, very quick. And he's got the handle on it. So, you know, he just flat out outperformed me. I threw a hero tune up in it, didn't hold, spun it out, bounced it off the wall. It was done for. Even if I had kept my 215 tune in it, I don't think it would have had anything for him anyways. He was consistent 198, 199 all day long, 70 plus miles an hour. I just don't have that tune yet. I'm probably a couple of weeks away from that, so we'll get there. So, you know, that's the one thing I'm gonna at least if you come out of this that you get is if you do branch off, you know, and you see that it's happening in your area, there's some guys out there doing the no prep thing, RC drag racing in your area, find somebody, kind of create a tuning alliance with them. The Mark Vines, those guys out west, you know, when Mark Vine rolls to a race, he's got 5 or 6 people with him, all racing. They're all sharing information back and forth. It's just like real drag racing. The more eyes, the more cars you have on the track, the more information you're going to gather and work together as a team. So, word of advice number 1, definitely team up with some people if you can. But yeah, so enough babble. Like I said, probably going to do North Carolina here this month. I do know anybody that's interested. I am going to go to the Kid Sims race in January in Florida. So I'm going to try to pick up some southern races, between now and January. So I'll probably dip down into the Carolinas a couple times in the next month or so. November right now, race-wise, looks kind of light, so I'm going to kind of wait and see what develops down south. Maybe even out west, California. I won't put it out of the realm of possibilities. If it works within my travel and my work schedule, we'll go for it. So, we're still going to be doing slot car builds this winter. I've got a couple of kits hanging on the wall I want to get into. And that's the other thing, like I said, I mentioned before, Luke's Hobbies LLC on Facebook. I think it's lukeshobbies.com. Quickly going to become your one-stop shop for anything and all. Drag racing, slot car racing, you name it. Hobby-wise, drag racing, he's got it. He carries Scrivener chassis, which is my go-to slot car chassis. He's always, he's got Scrivener chassis hanging on the walls, wheels, tire, you name it, he's got it. It's got a beautiful track. I think he just got a new one actually. So he's on his second iteration of a slot car drag strip. Again, it's a full scale quarter mile track. It's awesome. So, I guess before I jump off of here, I'll just give you kind of like a brief overview of what I've done to my 5.7 Arrow. I am anxiously awaiting the release of the GFRP Apollo. GFRP, the sister company. I don't know if you really want to call it a sister company, but yeah, pretty much so. Sister company to the to 5.7 Designs. It's a completely different chassis from the pictures I've seen, like everyone else has seen online, and through asking questions. The Arrow is a quote-unquote CustomWorks based, which oddly enough, CustomWorks is working on a prototype, no prep car themselves. So, meaning that it's CustomWorks based, meaning it uses the same style front kick up. CustomWorks arms, like the rear, the Arrow kit comes with the CustomWorks 8-pound shocks, the Big Bore shocks in the rear. The rear arm mounts are the same type screw pattern that you would from a CustomWorks. The Apollo is Terminator based, so it's different concept as far as the rear arm mounts are different. The front end is configured differently, that sort of stuff. So that's kind of like where that stuff comes from. So we'll do the crazy edit here and jump to the overhead. So we'll do that. Okay. So we're back. Kind of, because I need to change the way my camera mount works for the RC stuff. I kind of have my overhead arm kind of tweaked differently. Coming to the front, like I say, is pretty much stock. I've got the GNSS that everybody uses for testing and so forth. GPS based. Mine is about I want to say 15 hundredths of a second off. So whatever I see on my GNSS pop off, I can knock 0.15 off of it and that's what the ET is going to be. Mile an hour has been pretty accurate. And in general, each GNSS is a little bit different. Having worked with satellites and work with satellites currently, yes, weather, time of day, time of year does change this slightly. But I have verified mine to a TrackMate timing system, so I know how far it's off. See the front, this is kind of crazy thing. I've got some carbon fiber coming, so basically what I do is, this is my splitter. You see out front here. Rather than attach it to the body, I just attach it to the chassis. Nothing crazy. I don't internally limit shocks. Don't believe in it. If, just the way it is. I do externally limit just as bump stops, but I am in the process of working on, I need to cut some pieces out of some carbon fiber that I have for bump stops that amount to the front caster block. And by doing so, by bump stopping off the caster block, I can remove the limiter on the shocks. I don't have to worry about the body hitting the ground or tire clearance. I can set the body clearance as close to the top of the front tire as I want. And it's not going to rub, and the body's not going to bottom out. So basically the same concept as the Serpent floating body mounts. You can manipulate the chassis all you want, but the body height never changes. Weight, yep, that's pretty much a thing. A couple of standoffs to my receiver, and that's pretty straightforward. That's a cross body mount, I guess, for chassis mount for the sides for the Arrow. Just threw a couple of standoffs in there, longer screws. I moved my my receiver up there. I use a Futaba. I've got an older 4PLS. So really, bang for the buck. You can't beat the Futaba stuff. I'm not a FlySky Noble fan. A lot of people have had no issues with them. A lot of people have had issues with them. Same thing with the Sandwheel radios. Some people have had issues, some people haven't. Again, I've always been a KO guy. I kind of threw this one together. Electronics wise, didn't really have the money for the KO radio at the time. Actually, I had a Futaba 4PLS sitting on the shelf that had never been used. So I was kind of lucky with that respect, and that's what I went with. But that's it. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. You know, nothing crazy. You know, I kind of moved the body mounts. I felt the body mounts were too far back on the chassis. Little things. Like I said, if anyone has any specific questions, post them up. If you're interested in the no prep stuff, you know, like I said, any comments, ask your questions. If you're interested in getting into it, or you are currently into it and you're just starting to get your feet wet, ask away, ask the question, and I'll give you best answer that I can give you, and I won't sugarcoat it. I'm not super secretive. My thing is, I'll give you my tune-up. If you can make it work on your car and beat me with it, so be it. That's the way racing goes. You know, like I said, I've got tons of experience pro tree racing. Instant green is kind of new. Getting the hang of that pretty quick though. You know, I've got a pile of O and double O, you know, reaction time on ET slips, you know, from RC car races. So I'm not afraid to give you any kind of setup, whatever, you know. Let the best person win that day on the track. If you beat me with my own setup, that's awesome. That means I'm just going to work 10 times harder to go back out there and return the favor. So, you know, you notice I am running wheel bar shocks. This past weekend when I was racing, the track was really, really good. And if you notice, the tie rod is there. So I had set the bars up solid. I was not using the shocks, I just didn't take them off. So if you see the shocks on my car, doesn't necessarily mean that they're hooked up. They could be there, and I could have the tie rod in there. It just depends on the track conditions. I think both solid wheelie bar versus a shock wheelie bar, they have their places. You know, most of the classes I ran drag racing, full scale cars, we were limited on the wheelie bar length and so forth. So really, really long wheelie bars, like you see on Pro Mods and so forth, they don't have shocks on them because you're using the length and the flex and all of that stuff to your mechanical advantage. So the further back you get the contact point of the wheelie bar, the softer it actually hits the car, as opposed to a really short bar up close to the car, and it just shocks the suspension and everything else. And plus, with an RC car, we do not get separation, not a true separation like you get in the suspension of a race car. So like I said, there's a lot of things that carry over, but some of it doesn't. But that's it. Like I said, I'm running the DRK. I run right now I've got an R130 in the car, and I'm not really pushing it. I just changed my geometry in my rear end. Kind of, as people, if you're interested in it, throw questions out there, and I'll kind of give you an idea of what I started with geometry-wise in the rear end, and why I do what I do, why I use squat, why I use anti-squat, why I use droop or I don't use droop on the suspension, what is droop, what isn't droop, and all of that stuff. You know, I'm more than happy to share with people and give you the breakdown and that sort of stuff. So that's basically it. Thank goodness for editing. Yeah, so I'm gonna play it by ear. Hopefully I'll try to get some more content out and going. I know some stuff that I am working on through Luke's Hobbies. Some other things I'm going to work on through the Central Virginia RC page. I think it's Central Virginia RC No Prep. Some stuff there. Working on some content. Maybe do some live videos there with the group. That sort of thing. So that's it. Gonna have some more slot car stuff coming this winter. You know, basic build stuff. Like I said, I'm just sharing this build stuff on the slot car stuff because, you know, when I started, there was nothing out there. A couple of companies, I guess there's a company that sold or sells videos on slot car building. I'm not going to sell a video on how to build a slot car. No. I was able to figure it out, and I've got slot cars that get on the track and stay in one piece and competitive, then I can show you what I did. It's not a big deal. Same thing with the RC car. I'll show you what I did. If you have any questions, always comments, feel free to drop a note in the comments. I think for the most part, I'm pretty good about replying to those in a timely manner within a week or so. Sometimes if I'm on the road for work, it may take longer than others, but again, leave a comment, smash the like. Thanks for stopping by as I'm here playing with the tire. Thanks again. Till next time. See ya.